G'day guys, Jesse here from the True Footy YouTube channel, and today I'm going to be taking you through a video about some of the best and worst moments I've had supporting my beloved West Coast Eagles. So if you're a subscriber of this YouTube channel, there's a good chance you're a pretty die-hard footy fan and probably love your team with some passion like myself. And of course, with that comes a lot of heartache and a lot of joy depending on what team you go for. For me, like I said, I go for the Eagles, and thankfully we're a pretty good team to go for in terms of there's a good balance between, shitty times, but also some of the best times of my life. Now, of course, like any footy fan, I've seen some shit times for my club. Having said that, however, it's those shit times that make the high points all the more enjoyable. Being a 26-year-old Eagles fan means I've actually been alive for 3 Eagles premierships, although I barely scrape into the 1994 one, so I probably can't count that one. But I've also seen my team win a spoon. On top of that, there's been a lot of off-field controversy associated with the Eagles, so as you can imagine, there's been some difficult times as well. But in this video today, I'm going to break down the best 5 and the worst 5 moments I've had supporting the West Coast Eagles. Now, I'm going to start with the 5 worst at the start of the video because I really want to end this video on a high. So we'll start off with my first really bad Eagles experience was the first time I'd seen us lose a Western Derby. Now, as many of you probably don't know, I used to live in Thailand when I was a little kid, and I moved to Australia in 2002, and my understanding of the AFL and the Eagles were basically that the Eagles were way better than Fremantle, and we were never ever going to lose a single game to them ever. In 2002, the Eagles ended up making finals, and Fremantle, from memory, got nowhere near it, so going into 03, I was very confident we were never going to lose a Derby. Obviously, this was totally ridiculous, but I was in year 5 in 2003, so it was absolutely life or death whether we won or lost the Derby. I was talking the Eagles up all week at school to all my little friends in Bunbury who were all Dockers fans. There was a lot of Dockers fans in that classroom as well. So much banter. I'm pretty sure I even put on a $5 bet with my mate, which was $5 I didn't even have. This Derby in particular was an absolutely huge game. It was round 22 of the 2003 season, and the winner was basically going to finish higher than the other on the ladder. I hate to admit it, but it was an absolute cracking game. Probably one of the better derbies historically. I remember Paul Medhurst snapping that winning goal basically at the end to absolutely put a dagger through my heart. Even the fact that Daniel Kerr got goal of the year that game wasn't enough to appease me at all. I remember with 5 minutes to go, I actually had to leave the room because I thought I was going to burst into tears, which is ridiculous. And it's good to see nothing's changed for me as an Eagles fan. But sure enough, we lost the game, and I'm pretty sure after that we started to lose quite a lot of derbies. So that really put me in my place and was still one of the more difficult experiences I've had as an Eagles fan. The 4th worst experience I've had as an Eagles fan was probably the 2015 Grand Final. The reason it's not higher is because at least we didn't lose a close game, but the problem with it was that I drove from Perth to Melbourne for the game. Got there on Friday morning for the grand final parade. The game meant absolutely everything to me. All I wanted to do was see another Eagles flag before I die. Not only did we drive over for it, but we decided to get hammered on the Friday night and ended up getting into a little bit of mischief. We were hanging around the MCG, absolutely plastered the night before, got interrogated by some cops because there was obviously with the grand final a high terror threat alert. And yeah, so there was a little bit of drama. We were all right, we didn't actually do anything. But then obviously rolled up for the game the next day, absolutely hungover to see my team get pounded by 8 goals in one of the more boring grand finals in history. It wasn't really boring for me, it was just terrible, but you'd have to say that was probably one of the darker days as an Eagles fan for me. Number 3 on the list is a little more of a recent one. In fact, it's very recent, and fortunately for me, it's the fact that Willie Rioli has been provisionally banned by ASADA. Now, it's probably hard to include this in the list because we don't know exactly how long he's going to be banned for. Best case scenario, from the sounds of it, he's probably out for about 18 months, which is an absolute best case scenario. It means he might not get delisted. However, I'm kind of bracing myself for the reality that he's probably played his last game for the Eagles. And for me, that's a tragedy. He's one of my favorite players and one of the more gifted AFL players I've ever seen. And I really think he's an underrated asset in that Eagles 2018 team, even going into 2019. He was super important again, and the fact that we're probably not going to have him again for us in the future absolutely breaks my heart. So that is actually number 3 on the worst moments list. Now, the second worst time for me as an Eagles fan was probably the whole saga to end 2007. At the end of that final series, I think we had Kerr, Cousins, Judd all injured, and we went out in straight sets to Collingwood. But that wasn't the worst part. It was the fact that Judd requested a trade to Carlton like 2 weeks later, and then Cuz obviously got banned and sacked by the Eagles, and Cuz and Judd were probably my 2 favourite players, as you can imagine, being an Eagles fan in that era, and it basically meant the premiership window was over, and also it was just a little bit heartbreaking to see 2 of my favourite players leave the club, which didn't happen as much as it does now with all the trading and free agency and whatnot. So that was a dark time, and I remember thinking, you know, in 2008, we might not actually make the top 8, Dad, and sure enough, we came second last, and that was probably one of the worst AFL teams I've ever seen, the Eagles 2008 team, and that's saying something. But number 1 on the list for worst moments as an Eagles fan would probably be the Andrew Brayshaw hit last year. Was it last year? Yeah, 2018 second derby. The Eagles obviously hosted Fremantle. We absolutely trounced them, but nobody's going to remember that because unfortunately, Andrew Gaff had a absolute mind-melting moment and smacked young Andrew Brayshaw in the face, and I remember just feeling sick at the end of that game, and I just started on True Footy, really. We'd started uploading consistently all the time. We did a reaction podcast to it, and I remember finding it very difficult to actually try and express myself, and, you know, it was just a shit time because Gaff's one of my favourite players. And you know, I still deep down I think he's a good bloke. It's just when good people can do horrible things, obviously. But yeah, as you can imagine, like as a football fan, we always find a way to try and defend our players. But I was pretty much out of any ammunition with regarding Gaff. But yeah, it might sound a little bit strange because I've seen my team lose 2 grand finals, but I think in terms of the actual moment, that's the worst I've ever felt as an Eagles fan. But now, thankfully, we are into the positive stuff, so I'm going to take you through 5 to 1, my 5 favourite moments of being an Eagles fan. Thankfully, there's a lot of these to choose from. Number 5 on the list is Luke Shuey's After the Siren elimination final winner against Port Adelaide in 2017. Now, 2017 was a tough year, or more like a frustrating year as an Eagles fan. I can't say we had it tough, we still made finals, but I knew the team was capable of more. So to finish the home and away season in a really lackluster fashion was really disappointing, but then in the last game of the season, we put out an amazing win over Adelaide, who won the minor premiership, and then backed it up with an amazing elimination final. Or at least the first quarter and a bit was really good. We piled on a lot of early goals, and then Port reined us back and probably dominated for longer periods of the game than we did. And of course, the game was drawn, went to extra time. There's that iconic moment where Eric McKenzie has a decision whether he's going to rush the ball through for a behind and concede a 1-point lead, which probably would have lost us the game, but instead he chooses to cannon into the behind post, and it's a boundary throw in, and that was pretty much probably the difference between us winning and losing. I remember being at my girlfriend's house, watching it with her and her dad, and I was just throughout the whole game whinging about how we were going to lose, because sometimes I can be like that watching football, but in that moment that Shuey got the free kick, for some reason, Tony turned the lights off. We all ran to different corners of the room and watched Shuey nail this amazing goal. For me as well, the fact that Shuey is my favourite AFL player probably of all time, that one was a little bit extra sweet. Number 4 on the list is an absolute cracker, and I can't believe it's not higher on the list, but I think the fact that it wasn't related to like a grand final or a final or anything means I have to put it at number 4, and that's Nick Naitanui after the siren goal against GWS. Like 2017, 2016 again was also a frustrating year for Eagles fans who, coming off the grand final loss or a grand final appearance, we thought we were capable of more than finishing in the lower half of the 8, but unfortunately it was a really competitive top 6 or so this year. I think the Eagles had 16 wins and finished 6th. We were playing GWS. We were definitely the underdogs going into that game. GWS were considered pretty strong favourites. They were playing at home, and from memory, we were about 4 or 5 goals down at one point during the second half, and we were Dad and I had pretty much resigned ourselves to the fact that we were going to lose this game, and there was no shame in losing that game. But I remember we were watching it at our house in Abu Dhabi overseas. But Dad and I had to leave when we were about 4 or 5 goals down, and then we had to drive to the mall to do some family stuff. I think we were doing an escape room, and we were listening to the radio on my phone as we were going, and the Eagles were slowly pegging them back. By the time we reached the mall, Dad didn't want a bar of it. He didn't want to know any more about the score. He was going to go home later and watch the replay, but I can't do that. I cannot watch an Eagles game delayed if I need to know the live score. I can't deal with it. So as we were going to the escape room, we're registering it. I'm checking the score all constantly. Eagles goal, Eagles goal, Eagles goal. And then at some point, my girlfriend messages me when there's about 5 seconds to go, and I think she says we're about to lose because there was no chance we were going to win. Then the next thing I got was a series of messages going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Basically, she tells me that we've won, but I've still got absolutely no idea how we've won, and I've got to be composed in front of my dad who's not allowed to know the score. So after hours of screaming internally and not being able to tell my dad the score, we went home, we watched the replay, and I had to pretend I didn't know what was going to happen. And to be honest, I didn't know what was going to happen. I knew we won, but I didn't know how we'd won. And I remember with 5 seconds to go, we're watching the replay. Dad's swearing his guts out because he thinks we've lost. He goes, this is fucking bullshit. Oh yeah, you dogs. Not really, that's not a very good impression. But of course, Nick Nat taps the ball down to himself and snaps an absolute ripper. GWS really did an average job of trying to kill that contest, but nonetheless, it was a brilliant individual effort by Nick Nat, and we won the game. And at that point, there was a bit of a belief that the Eagles would somehow pull off a miraculous premiership win from about 6th place. And ironically, the Bulldogs did it from 7th that year. So it maybe wasn't too far-fetched. It didn't lead to anything. We ended up going out in the first week of the finals, actually. But nonetheless, in terms of the actual moment, one of my absolute favorite memories as an Eagles fan. Separating number 2 and number 3 for me is really difficult. And I'm going to say that number 3 on the list is actually the 06 premiership win, specifically the moment where Chick smothers the ball and hand passes it to Adam Hunter to nail the goal. And then, of course, the moment of the final siren. So I was actually at the 2006 grand final. I was really lucky. I didn't go in 05, thankfully. Went in 06, and I saw us win by a point. And I was there with both my parents, and as you can imagine, as a 12-year-old, I was absolutely on top of the world. But controversially, perhaps, number 2, ahead of the 06 grand final win, is actually the 2018 prelim. Now, for anyone who knows me, knows I'm an insane West Coast Eagles fan, and I would say that love has only grown since I became, I think, roughly a teenager. So the reason I say the prelim in 18 is better than the 06 grand final is just because as a 25-year-old in 2018, it just meant even more to me than it did as a 12-year-old. Now, I know the Eagles are a very successful club, and their fans, including myself, are pretty spoiled in that respect. However, of course, as you get a bit older, you're always going to have that doubt. Am I going to see my team play in a grand final and win a flag again? So when we actually played Melbourne in the prelim, a lot of people were talking up the Demons as being the red hot side of the finals, and that was probably justified considering their entry into the prelim coming off wins against Geelong and Hawthorn. I was definitely a bit nervous for this one. I could definitely see it going either way. And the Eagles just turned up one of their best performances probably in club history to absolutely torch Melbourne. I think we kicked the first 11 goals and we kept Melbourne goalless at halftime. For me, that was probably one of the best days of my life, and the reason is higher than the grand finals. The grand finals were so tense in terms of actually enjoying the game. I wouldn't say I really enjoyed the game. However, the prelim was amazing because obviously it was a 60,000 full crowd of 99% Eagles fans, and every goal was a celebration. Every goal was an absolute party. There wasn't that much tension in the air, and of course in about the third quarter the game was sealed and you started hearing that MCG MCG chant all around Optus Stadium, and it brought a tear to my eye at the time, and I just remember being so unbelievably happy that I was going to see my team in a grand final. Now, the only thing that could beat the 2018 prelim for me was the following week. The only thing possible would have been achieving the ultimate glory 7 days later at the MCG. Now, of course, I was very lucky again to go to another grand final. This was my third Eagles grand final in a row, and most people don't get to see their club in a grand final for their whole lives. We took the punt, I think, at about round 9 when we belted Richmond. Another absolutely great day. We decided to get refundable tickets to Melbourne, and we'd cancel them if we didn't get tickets to the grand final or if the Eagles didn't make the grand final. But sure enough, we flew over. I did a vlog of the game, and as I've said maybe in other podcasts as well, one of the least enjoyable games to watch of my life. Of course, we were 5 goals down early in the first quarter, and of course, it brought back memories of being there in 2015 and just watching goal after Hawthorn goal. It was horrible. I was pretty silent throughout the game. I think my dad was more vocal. He was with me, and he was complaining loudly, and I was just I felt like if I spoke, I was going to throw up. Of course, the Eagles slowly started to peg back, and I just remember that amazing moment with that tension-relieving goal when Yo kicks the goal right on 3/4 time to hit the lead. That was the point where you could actually start to get some real belief that the Eagles could win this game. Now, of course, at the start of the final term, Collingwood got 2 really good goals through Myercheck and going off the top of my head. And at that point, again, I felt we were destined to lose. Football's such a momentum game, and at that point, to give up 2 goals in a tight game like that, I thought very, very hard to recover. But of course, we did hit back. I think Vardy got the next one. Kennedy kicked an awesome goal as well. I do remember with a couple of minutes to go, it was Jack Crisp for them, took a defensive mark on the wing and sort of launched the ball back towards R50. And I remember welling up with tears thinking we've lost. And I've traveled all this way to see us lose again. A couple of minutes later, Dom Sheed takes that mark. I remember thinking the time he played on, but on the replay, I don't think it looks like he's actually played on now, but I was just relieved. And I remember thinking as he's lining up for goal, we'd obviously missed about 4 shots in a row before that. We were just scoring behind, half behind. We were 2 points down now. And I remember thinking, if she just doesn't kick it out on the full here, gets a point, we can lock it in, scramble a couple more points, we can hit the lead. And of course, I had absolutely no expectation on the kick itself. I was half-heartedly recording for my vlog at the time, and you can actually see the footage of the ball going in, and then I absolutely lose my fucking mind.
Massive shade from the boundary.
But of course, as you all know, we managed to hang on and win by 5 points in one of the best grand finals of all time, it has to be said. For me, I don't know if I would say it was the greatest day of my life, because emotionally it was absolute turmoil at times, but I would say that it was the greatest moment of my life. The 2 minutes between Dom Sheed's goal and maybe 10 seconds after the siren, and I remember just staring at the field and waiting for that song to start. I couldn't actually believe we'd won until I heard the song and saw the players celebrating, but it just felt like about 20 seconds before I saw that. And of course, if you watch the footage back, it was about 1 second. But there you go, there you have it, guys. The 5 best and the 5 worst moments I've ever had as an Eagles fan. And I have to say, those happy memories far outweigh the sad times I've had as an Eagles fan. I'm very blessed to support this great football club, and hopefully the good times are still yet to come. But thank you guys for watching. I'd love to hear in the comments your favorite moments as a fan of the club you support, and maybe some of the moments you wish hadn't quite happened. I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. If you liked the video, guys, please consider throwing us a like and subscribing if you haven't already. Over the summer, I'm going to do, I'm coming up with maybe some different ideas for content for the channel. Like I've said in the past, we're going to do maybe some cricket live streams. We're definitely going to do podcasts. I've lined up the pair for a podcast, hopefully in the next week or so. So make sure you stick around and watch that, and go subscribe to his channel, The Pair. He's a great YouTuber. But thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you all very soon on the True Footy YouTube channel. Thank you.